So this is a very interesting pack because I think Makelele and Veron both look very good. Starting off with Veron, he's a very kind of unique player. He's an orchestrator that's tall and good defensively. So we have a good defensive orchestrator in Kimmich, but he's not really that tall. And off the top of my head, I can't actually think. Maybe Xabi Alonso would be the closest to Veron, but this guy's a much better player than Alonso because his balance is a lot higher. And I think balance is one of the most important attributes for an orchestrator. So if we look at his stats, you can see here I'm going to have two builds. So the first one is a more defensive build. His passing is 90. I did say in a different video you don't need 90 passing. So you only need really 88. The reason I have it is just because it's kind of leftover points. There's only 1 point here. You could put it into finishing and curl, I guess. But if you're not someone who firmly believes that 88 low pass is as high as you need to go, if you have a true passing skill, I guess the 90 is there for that scenario. But yeah, he looks very good. He's got great ball control, tight possession. Those two stats are going to be more important than the dribbling stat itself. Obviously, great defensive stats, and he's quite fast too with the good balance. So I think this guy is very similar to Pirlo, just a more defensive Pirlo. His finishing isn't as good. His dribbling isn't quite as good, but it's pretty close. And his balance isn't as good, but he is tall, so there's a bit something different there. He is faster. Veron's faster, and he has better defensive stats. So I think this Veron will be a kind of more, I don't know, he's very unique, very tall, very defensive. I'm kind of interested in using him. I won't be spinning, but I do think he is interesting. If we look at the second build, though, the second build is more of a well-rounded build. So we took off a bit of the passing, a bit of the defending, and put it more into speed and dexterity. So this one has 90 balance. So I think he looks very effective, and I'd be excited to use him in game. Now, one issue with the card is his weak foot. He only has medium accuracy and rarely usage. I think one of Pirlo's biggest strengths is his very high weak foot. So it is a bit disappointing that Veron, he'll only be good on the right foot. I wouldn't be confident in that left foot, and the versatility in between which foot you can use is important for an orchestrator, because if your opponent knows you're only going to be strong on one foot, you can kind of shepherd you out into a certain area. But if you look at his skills, I think he does start off with a good baseline. Obviously, he does need some additions. So for the skills I'd put on Veron, I'd put interception, track back, cut behind and turn, gamesmanship, and double touch. I think pretty much interception, track back are going to be this a necessity. Interception 100%, and then track back will just take him to a new level. And then gamesmanship, just because he's got the good balance and good dribbling, and just orchestrators in general, you're going to want to hold on to the ball with them a lot. So if you get put under pressure, maybe you fall over, lose the ball. If you don't have gamesmanship, your opponent is in on goal. If you have gamesmanship, you'll get a foul. Cut behind and turn is also just good for kind of switching. If your opponent is shepherding you out to one side, you can just cut behind and turn very quickly, and then you open up the entire pitch. And then double touch just to help them get by the opponent when you're kind of stuck in a jiffy. So I think, yeah, very good player. And I don't think you can go too wrong if you spun for this guy. So next player we're going to look at is Makelele. And again, this guy is similar to Veron. He's got very good balance for a position that, well, orchestrators you'd expect to have good balance, but you wouldn't expect a tall player to have good balance. For a destroyer, I don't think there's any destroyer with good balance in the game. I might be wrong on that, but I don't think there is. So the build, we can get the 88 low pass, so also very good passing for a destroyer. I don't know if that's necessary, just because whenever I've used a destroyer, they don't really need to do many crazy passes. But you can see here, he's very fast, agile too. We got good aerial strength, and he's got good defending. So the defending is higher, a lot higher than I usually would recommend. I would usually recommend just get to 90s. So we do have another build with less defending. It's not getting to 90s. It's the one before. And with that extra points, you get a little bit more into the aerial strength. And he is short, but I do think with these aerial strength stats and aerial superiority, which I'm going to recommend on him, he will be actually good in the air. If you know yourself that you don't really need passing on your destroyer with the way you play, you could just take the points off. And with that, you can get into the 85. You can get into the 85 on the jumping, and then you can even get extra points elsewhere. Like maybe you want to get the 80 ball control, or you just want to make them generally more agile. So there is a few options you can do here and make him look even better purely defensively. If we take a look at his skills, now he's got the same weak foot kind of stats as Veron. I don't think it's an issue for Makelele, just because he's not going to be that important in your build-up play. His job is to win the ball and give it to someone like Veron who can distribute it. But if you look at his skills, he's got interesting ones. He actually does start off with double touch, which is interesting. The skills I'd put on Makelele are track back, true passing, blocker, gamesmanship, and aerial superiority. So I don't think I've ever said I'd put gamesmanship on a destroyer before. The only reason is just because of how good his balance is. I don't think I'd be able to resist dribbling with him, because even the low defending or dribbling stats, I actually have a Mateus with very similar dribbling stats, and it might be the exact same and good balance, and he's one of the better dribblers in my team. So particularly for midfielders, I talk about it into my how to train midfielders guide. High balance can help compensate for low dribbling, because when you dribble with a midfielder, you're usually going to be sprint dribbling, except for an orchestrator. Orchestrators would be a little bit different in that regard. So yeah, just to reiterate, track back, true passing, blocker, gamesmanship, and aerial, and especially aerial. If you put the aerial strength points in, I recommend playing into player strengths. So if you don't put points in his aerial strength, there's no point putting the skill on, in my opinion. Well, not no points, but there's less of a reason. Whereas if you give him the stats, give him the skill as well. And then Makelele is a player that a lot of you guys might have, so I'm just going to compare him to the other versions. So compared to this version, they're very similar, honestly, so I don't think it's worth an upgrade. This one, the new one is a bit better, and also has the Fortress skill, so he is a bit better. And then compared to the old school, kind of just normal Legend one, I don't know if this one's worth upgrading from, but there's definitely an improvement in the new one. You could even take the passing off and make him a bit faster. So if we took off that and get the speed like that, and then if we can't actually get the dexterity up from there. But anyway, yeah, you make this more purely defensive. They still look very good, but I do think the new one's an upgrade. I just don't think it's probably worth your money. And that's mostly because the last player in the pack, Beletti, just looks underwhelming. You can see here his stats might not look too bad, but we had to put 13 points into defending to get him to a decent level, and he still doesn't even have 90 on any stat. He is quite fast, and he's got good kicking power. But the kicking power helped with crossing. I'm not actually too sure. I think kicking power does help crossing, actually. Now I think about it, from using Trent. So yeah, he doesn't look spectacular to me. You can give him less speed, and you can get the defensive stats up to 90. But then it's just 15 points just sounds crazy into defending. So I'm just not impressed by this Beletti. If we take a look at his skills, I'd recommend interception, acrobatic clearance. Aerial superiority, true passing, and blocker. So very similar to what I recommend on Makelele. Like his card just doesn't do enough for me for Beletti. If we just take another look at Makelele, talking about the skills he has, is Fortress good? I've actually never used a player with Fortress, so I can't say myself. I did do a video with Gianni where we ranked every Showtime skill, so if you want to know thoughts on Fortress, check that out. Makelele doesn't have blocker as well, but he does have sliding tackle, so that's why I'd recommend going for blocker, because you get additional blocking animations if you have those two skills. And interestingly, Makelele does have acrobatic clearance, so if you like to put deep line on your DMF, that's very good, because it essentially acts like a centre back, and I think aerial superiority and acrobatic clearance are very important if you put deep line on a player. And then for Veron, I did recommend interception. So obviously he's got the one touch true pass and interception necessity skills that I recommend. And then for his weak foot, he does have outside curler, so I guess that will help with his kind of lack of a strong weak foot. And also the lofted pass with the weighted pass combo, and also the low lofted pass and weighted pass combo. When he's not playing the passes short, he'll be able to hit them long, and with that combination, they'll be a lot more effective. So overall, a good pack, but personally, I would just wait for eFootball 25, because we just don't know what they're going to release in eFootball 25, and it might be kind of just a new level of players where these guys just kind of look behind the power curve.